Welcome back to Mind Trick Media. Today we have a one-of-a-kind video for us. It's the first time this has ever happened. We had a video request. I don't know about you. I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, we kind of mentioned it in the last couple episodes, and honestly, this is not the first question I thought we were going to get.
Yeah.
But it actually intrigued me because there's a lot of shit in this episode that I actually had to, learn.
Yeah.
So that's also awesome. I love that.
Right.
So,
Also, we were looking into some stuff. I found a book trilogy, which we could start to cover.
which I'm kind of assuming that this question arises from.
Right.
But, yeah, so...
So yeah, anyways, the person that made the comment, the person's name is E-Vibes. The question is, do you think that Jason and Jaina Solo's storyline could have been better than the sequel trilogy? Basically, that was the question.
We're going to break this down a little bit different because we're going to try to cover all bases. So we're kind of going to start with the sequel trilogy. So obviously, main characters, Ben Solo, Rey.
Ray.
The Resistance, the Rise of the First Order. I mean, we've definitely
Who
probably
knows what
all
happens
seen
in the
this.
middle?
Yeah, stuff happens.
Palpatine
People really like the
returned.
second movie. Don't know why.
Palpatine returned.
Yeah, Snoke didn't matter. I don't even know who he was. They never explained it. Metachlorians don't mean a thing. I don't know.
Training doesn't mean anything.
Train don't mean anything. Yeah. But at least they didn't turn a Kyber crystal in the hilt. Anyway, so you guys kind of know the breakdown. Kylo ends up sacrificing himself. Rey then goes on to defeat Palpatine. She claims she's part of this family that doesn't want her. That was mean. So basically, we're going to go through that, and then so he's going to talk about, which right now is what the sequel trilogy ending was kind of supposed to be before people stuck a bunch of their fingers into it and changed it.
So we were looking up some stuff, and there's some conflicting ideas. I've seen this one pop up the most, so I'm going to talk about this. So we kind of had different directors and stuff that were going to direct these movies, and we had a specific way that the sequels were supposed to go.
All Disney's idea.
Yes, this is all Disney's idea.
We'll get into George.
Yeah, we'll talk about George Lucas' stuff, but this is all like Disney's sequels. You kind of have the seventh movie. It's kind of the same. It's borderline like identical. Most of my notes that I have to talk about are about the ninth movie because the ninth movie was drastically
The seventh
different.
movie I felt like was the only plan. That was the only thing that was planned.
Right. The seventh movie, I mean, it's a carbon copy of the fourth movie. Like, let's be real. There's different aspects, sure, but it's at the end of the day, it's the same idea, which is fine. Whatever. You had to start somewhere, and that's a good starting point. You know what I mean? You establish everything, whatever. The eighth movie was kind of similar as well, except for Luke doesn't die. That's like the biggest highlight from this is Luke does not die in the eighth movie. So the ninth movie is supposed to be called Duel of the Fates, which I thought was interesting because we have the original fight in the first movie that's called Duel of the Fates. So I was like, okay.
Which is called that because of the music, which
Right,
is funny
right.
too. But okay.
So basically, we have Rey, and Rey stays a nobody. She's not a Palpatine. She doesn't call herself, well, as far as I know, she doesn't call herself a Skywalker. Instead of the gold lightsaber that she gets, she builds her lightsaber, and I'm pretty sure they were supposed to show it. They talked about showing like the first construction of a lightsaber, like live action. She has a double-bladed blue lightsaber, which I think makes more sense with her character than the gold. Because obviously the meanings of the lightsaber colors are kind of like
yeah, and there's also
almost
been like a fan theory forever about how when she clicks hers over, you can kind of see blue, green, and then the gold.
Right.
It might be something to do with having multiple crystals, but I don't know where she got them from.
Right.
So that'll be interesting. Yeah. So
Palpatine is not returning. Palpatine is not returning in this. Kylo is kind of the big bad guy. And
they fly now.
Kylo is kind of trying to be like Vader. It's almost like he's trying to be more like Malgus, in my opinion, in a way where it's like he's kind of being bad to just push away everything from the past.
Yeah, he's trying to be Vader, but didn't have what Vader had,
Right.
which was regret, sadness, the loss of his wife. To a point, thought the loss of his kids, the anger he had against the Jedi for not helping him, Palpatine kind of betraying him. Kylo just like,
Right.
originally there wasn't even the thing with Luke trying to kill him in his sleep. That was also like a made up thing on the spot. If you know anything about Luke from Legends and stuff, I don't know where that thought came in of Luke being weak. And what's crazy is like even with the 8th movie, we still see the flash of Luke having some of the powers he has in Legends, where he can just force project himself across the galaxy.
Right.
And then we're instantly like, yeah, but that kills him.
Right.
But anyway, keep going.
We do have a scene. I can't remember exactly sure how it happens, but Kylo gets like really like burnt and messed up. Kind of like a similar, not as dramatic as like Vader's, but like he's always been this Vader wannabe. And in this movie, he actually kind of becomes Vader in a way where his mask and stuff has to be put on him. Like he has to be in like kind of like a suit kind of thing, because he got like messed up real bad. And the biggest highlight of this movie is Kylo and Rey's fight, which was supposed to be a lot better. Just talking about it made it sound like it was a lot better than the Kylo Rey fights we get.
And honestly, I do think one of the highlights, if there is such thing as a highlight in the 9th movie, was that their fight was halfway decent. I still think it
better.
was bad, but it was better. It was
better.
a good, an okay thing in that movie.
You know who would have been a good... Well, I saw this thing, I guess getting off topic, I saw this thing that was talking about Kylo and how he swings his lightsaber is like really good for like the lightsaber that he has. It's slow, it's more powerful. Like with his cross guard.
His best move is the backhanded overswing, which can be deadly, but he looks like he still can't do it correctly.
Well, right, because, I mean, we've talked about how Kylo looks like the lightsaber is super heavy, and it's kind of, like, clunky the way he's swinging it. But, like, if you played Jedi Fallen or Jedi Survivor, when he gets his crossguard, when Cal gets his crossguard, it's kind of similar. That's how they do the gameplay. And it makes sense also with, like, lore and stuff like that, with how you have to swing the crossguard, and it's supposed to be, like, it's a deadly, powerful swing, and the defense is not very good. So then we have Rey with her lightsaber, and a lot of it also looks like she's swinging a crossguard, where it's like deadly, powerful swings, and like,
which is weird because
Right.
she has
a normal
Anakin's
lightsaber. Right. So I thought about that, and I just think it's funny. Like, it doesn't really make sense. So just wanted to bring that up. But in this duel, apparently it's supposed to be this epic duel that they have. It lasts a very long time. I think they said it was going to be pushing like 30 minutes of screen time. Kylo blinds her. He slashes her in the eyes and blinds her, kind of like how Kanan gets blinded by Darth Maul. She ends up stepping back, and obviously, like, they have like a moment where Kylo kind of is just like absorbing like the dark side, like, oh, like, I'm beating you, you know what I mean? Like, kind of just gathering almost like just more strength towards this fight. Rey takes a piece of like the cloth off of her, like, I don't even know what to call that she wears. She wraps her eyes with it, which, I mean, I don't know why that really matters, but she wraps her eyes with it, and then they are fighting again, and Rey's actually fighting better in this scenario than what she was before, until she starts to lose this fight, and this is where Luke Skywalker comes in. Luke Skywalker comes in and confronts Kylo, and Kylo just immediately goes to kill him, just slashing down at him. And when he does that, Luke grabs the blade with his bare hand, because he learned the Force ability that Yoda uses with the Force Lightning. It's the same Force ability, which means Yoda can grab a lightsaber, which is crazy.
Or Luke's better at that ability.
Or yeah. Same idea of a Force ability is like the Force Lightning, like grabbing it and like pushing it back. But
you're not actually grabbing it. The Force is, and it's just
Right.
that close to your
So he
hand.
like grabs it, and Kylo's obviously stunned by what happened because I mean, who wouldn't be? And then he kind of pulls like if you guys have seen the Clone Wars with the Mortis arc, and the father does the same thing. He like force pushes the lightsaber blade back into the hilt, and obviously Kylo's like, "What the hell just happened?" And Luke just starts laying into Kylo because Kylo's whole thing is he wants to be like Vader. And Luke just nails him with, if you had any idea who Vader really was and what he really stood for in the end, especially, he'd be so disappointed in you being your grandfather.
Yeah, and this is still where something like where this idea was better. It still kind of doesn't make sense because like exactly he's his grandfather. They don't like Luke never would have told him about that. Like it's weird to me because like and obviously like I feel like when we talk about Luke a lot, we're talking about like Legends Luke,
Right.
not necessarily canon Luke, but like Luke, it wouldn't have been like that. Like Luke didn't follow all of the quote unquote Jedi code, but it's because he changed it because he thought that was part of the downfall of the Jedi.
Right.
And so like that's definitely like a story or a teaching that I feel like he would already have told Kylo. But it would have been for a better scene for sure.
Yeah, and then basically after that, Kylo crumbles, and then the Resistance basically wins the war in the end. I mean, basic, typical stuff. So, I mean, I know that was more geared towards one movie in the end, but, like, that was how this was supposed to wrap up instead of Palpatine coming back and all these, like, basically Force ghosts at this point that don't make sense with what we've already done in canon. So, I mean, personally, just, like, to spitball how I feel, I think this is already a better start than what we originally got. So, but yeah, we can move on more towards the question side of this.
Yeah, so kind of just going off this question, I'm kind of bringing in the fact that like a lot of what's talked about Ben Solo is that he's like these mesh of characters, and typically the mesh that people talk about is Ben Skywalker, who is Luke and Mara Jade's son, and then Jason Solo, who is Han and Leia's son. So basically, I'm going through and using this article called "Is Ben Solo Based on Star Wars Legends?" And so basically, it's that he's often compared to Jason and Ben. But if you take a look at some more original books that were in it, like he actually is kind of in line with a different character who's also in the books with these characters named Kip. And if we butcher names, I'm sorry. And it's either Duran or Duran. And basically, so like this character is part of the rebellion, the newer rebellion, resistance, whatever we want to call it. And basically this article goes through and it's like, yeah, Kip is like kind of like teetering and tiptoeing back and forth over the line of like the dark side and stuff like that, which is exactly what Ben/Kylo is doing. And basically like, yeah, like it's this weird thing where like Kylo is somewhat of a mesh of like all of the Solo children, all of the Skywalker children, and then this Kip guy who helps well, we'll get into that more. So basically, Jason Solo.
Just to say real quick, I mean, it kind of makes sense since they went the route with not using any Legends characters at all.
It looks like they looked at Legends and went, "That's a decent story. Let me shift this around to make it my own," which is bullshit.
Disney wanted to make their own stories, and they probably did use material, which it clearly would make sense if none of these other family members are here, but like we have ideas here and there within Kylo. It kind of makes sense because I mean you just dismissed all of those characters, made them Legends, and then brought in Kylo as a new character and brought in ideas to make your character. And I mean it makes sense, but like I also think it's bullshit too.
Yeah. So first, I want to talk about Jason. And so Jason, I think, is the most notable of these four characters just because I think his story was like a big thing that stuck with people who read the book series The book series is called Legacy of the Force. And so basically it's in the new Jedi Order era, and Jacen Solo, obviously the son of Han and Leia, he was a Jedi Knight and was known for a battle where he was like the hero of this battle. And his big thing is he becomes a Sith. And he ends up, and this is another name that I'm going to say a couple different ways, he ends up becoming Darth, it's either Sadis or Cadus. And basically he becomes the main protagonist. And so he is very highly compared to Kylo because, one, he's the son of Han and Leia, and two, he was a Jedi Knight who flipped over to the dark side. So to keep talking about his story, I now have to talk about his sister, his twin sister, Jaina. This is a character that I would say both of us knew very little about. Like, very little about. And upon, like, looking stuff up, she seems like she's a fucking badass. But she is the twin sister of Jacen.
Which the first time we get to see these two characters, I mean, technically you don't get to see them, but if you've read the Thrawn trilogy, Heir to the Empire, they talk about how Leia's pregnant with twins.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that this is what that's referencing.
No, this is. Because I just saw that when I was looking it up.
Yeah.
These are the twins that she's pregnant with in Heir to the Empire.
Yeah. So basically, she's born to Han and Leia, obviously. She trains as a Jedi on Yavin 4. And she kind of has a similar story where she's part of the New Republic military and she's part of the Rogue Squadron. She's actually a pilot, which falls in line again, the Skywalker lineage, and then adding Han to it, fucking all great pilots. Mm-hmm. And she also fought actually in the same battle as her brother. It's the Yuuzhan Vong War, which I've also, like, I think I've heard about, but I don't know much about it. She was romantically involved with a fellow pilot named Jagged Fell. But this is where the story starts getting interesting. So they actually have a brother named Anakin. And this is kind of where Jaina's story gets super interesting to me. So their brother Anakin dies. And this causes both of them to teeter heavily. And Jaina is pushing towards the dark side. And it kind of like, maybe not the reason that Jacen flips, but Jacen flips to the dark side. But she's later redeemed by this character named Kip, who is also in this new era Jedi. And yeah, so basically she fought in a shit ton of wars. And I think it's funny too, because like there's this New Republic and like they still continue with the fact that the world is, or the universe is just at war constantly, the galaxy. But so her and her brother Jacen commanded the Rogue Squadron during the blockade of Corellia, and the resulting crisis resulted in a split between her and Jacen. And Jacen became very aggressive and was doing things not necessarily in the Jedi Code, and for the Jedi Order. A little bit later on, their aunt Mara Jade Skywalker ends up dying, and basically, Jaina becomes encouraged to find a way to stop Jacen because he's become this like Darth Cadus Sith Lord, and she actually starts training. And I think this is weird because like he survives in Legends 2, which is weird, but she ends up training under Boba Fett. Which is like, dude, this story is so off the walls, but like there's so much like intertwined stuff. And a thing that I didn't know is that she ends up killing her twin brother while he's still Darth Cadus in a lightsaber duel. And yeah, she continues to be a part of the new Jedi Order, and she actually starts to like try to take control of the Jedi Order after her uncle Luke Skywalker is actually he's basically kind of what happens where instead of him like exiling himself, he is forced to exile by the New Republic. And this is for him allowing and like not seeing the fall of Jacen. So she basically tries to, and is like, not tries to as in like take over, but she's like wanting to take control and become like the Grandmaster in a way. So yeah, that kind of goes into the fact that they do all that, and then it jumps to a different thing where they start talking about Abeloth, and she actually goes and helps fight Abeloth. She's part of that story. So then, so that's kind of them, Jacen and Jaina, and that's kind of what the question was about. It's twin siblings who are going through the New Republic with their parents and their aunt and uncle, and how they're intertwined, and yeah. So, as right now, thumbs up to the question. So then we have, I want to talk about Ben Skywalker because he is presumably the other character of where this Ben in Solo came from. It was a mesh of a Luke child and a Leia child. So basically he was also obviously Jedi Knight. He also fought in the Zhushan Vong War, and his story is kind of not as intriguing as Jaina and Jacen, and that's why I think the commenter specifically asked about that. Yeah, I mean, he kind of just fights in a bunch of the wars that they fight in, and he ends up also going to help fight Abeloth. That's kind of his story. Basically, those three characters are kind of in it together the whole time. They're cousins, but they're also all part of the Jedi Order. They're kind of all fighting in the same things and doing the same things. I actually think that Ben played a bigger part than Jaina did in defeating Abeloth, because I know that there's multiple different legend stories of how Abeloth gets defeated, and seeing now that there might be doing a canon version of this, I would love to see what happens.
It's going to be drastically different.
Yeah, there's no way it's going to be the same at all.
Well, I mean, dude, like the way they've done it with the Ahsoka series, I mean, yeah, Ahsoka's going to be involved. Ahsoka's not involved here, so it's like, okay, like, yeah, it's already going to be drastically different. So,
anyway. Yeah, and something that's one of the interesting things about Ben is that he actually has a very close relationship with a Sith apprentice, which I think is weird. It's like, if you've read Legends books, like, it feels so different, but I think it's because we have this severe change ever since 7, 8, and 9 came out of, like, how things happen. Even, like, the Thrawn trilogy is kind of, like, interrupted because, like, she has twins. Mm-hmm. And they just don't keep doing that.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of where, like, the Ahsoka series / like the movie Dave Filoni's making. It's called Heir to the Empire, like, and Thrawn's heavily involved. So it's got to be like something from there. So that would change the Heir to the Empire book series, and then obviously like the sequels changes all this stuff, right? So like that's where we're at.
To add to the story, we now have Kip, and basically he's kind of in the same boat. Was on Yavin 4, part of the new Jedi Order. He actually was exploited by the spirit of a Sith Lord named Exar Kun. And yeah, so he was a very talented pupil, and as I said before, he actually helped Jaina kind of redirect back to the Jedi Order instead of turning. He also fought in the Zhushan Vong War. Yeah, so we have this these 4 characters who all kind of have different characteristics of Kylo, where Jacen and Jaina both play this role of like was a Jedi, teetered, one of them flipped, one of them didn't, which kind of shows both of his stories. Ben, we kind of have a similar story of him being in the Jedi Order, and I think they used his name to help do that. And then Kip, where Kip's involved as well because Kylo looks like Kip, which is weird. He's a very tall, dark-haired character, and he teeters with the dark side due to being exploited by a Sith Lord. And it's just weird because
this is the issue with like what we have with like the question and then what the sequels are, because it's you have the story in canon, and it's so like narrowed down to where it's like, all right, like there's not very many people. Obviously there's like the resistance and stuff like that, but there's not very many main characters. And I feel like what Disney did is they were like, okay, we have all these characters, let's make it into one character, and it's easier to write, even though we can say what we want, all we want about the writing for the sequels, but they basically took so many aspects from different parts of Legends and just combined it all together.
But left out all of the shit that made sense.
They left out
They
all
don't talk about there being Sith Lords. And like this, like, and that's the thing with Jason. Jason tries to take over the new galactic republic, basically, and he starts imposing Sith law.
The way I feel, the way I feel about this is they looked at the Legends content and was like, that is way too complex for any of us to handle.
I think the problem is it would have to have been 6 movies. And I do think they could have condensed it and just done one part of the story and made it 3. Mm-hmm. I don't think it would have been that hard. They make it seem like the first 6 movies in their 3 trilogy spots, there's like not that much storytelling when there is. And obviously I feel like there's a lot more storytelling in 1, 2, and 3 just because it jumped so much, but then they went back and like did it, and I know that's the complaint with the prequels, but you know, I feel like it does justice to the Star Wars world, whereas 7, 8, and 9 does not. Mm-hmm. And as much as people like say, "Oh, I liked that movie," or "I liked this," or "I liked that character," in an overall look at the 9 movies, those 3 movies do not matter to anything that happens in the first 6, other than that they're just plucking characters. Mm-hmm. And yeah.
Okay, so moving on.
I don't know what to say because like
we can
as much as it's easy to say like anything would have been better than what they did.
Right.
This legitimately is, and that's why I loved that this person commented.
We can wrap back around to this. All right, let's move on to the George Lucas's sequels. Do you want to get started on this one?
So yes, there's a lot of different things. And I'm looking at so I have an article here, and it's going to be talking about major differences between the two. So I'll kind of get into that in a sec. We'll go over kind of what George originally wanted. So the main focus of George is that Luke starts a new Jedi Order, and his kids, I guess his sibling, their kids, all that kind of stuff. All the characters we just talked about all are in this galaxy, but the main protagonist is Darth Maul. Mm-hmm. Darth Maul survives. The rebel scene doesn't happen, which
they just did that scene to basically wrap up Rebels.
To give him an end.
To give him an end because George Lucas knew that he was selling Star Wars. So it was like, all right, let's finish everything that I have in place to where it's like already a concrete full story that makes sense.
And you kind of leave it open of, did Darth Maul actually die there?
Right.
But
it leaves you with like, here's a basically clear-cut ending to everything I've done, and then Disney can kind of just move forward. But yeah, so in this version, Darth Maul does not die in the hands of Obi-Wan. So you can keep going.
Yeah, and a character that is in big time talking about right now is Darth Talon. That is the Sith apprentice he takes on. I'm pretty sure he takes on multiple apprentices in some of the Legends, but basically it's going to cover that, and basically it's just going to be that. Maul fights this person, Luke does this. They end up fighting. I think he might end up killing Luke.
I'm pretty sure Maul was supposed to like retake claim of the criminal underworld, like how he was in the Clone Wars. But like obviously Order 66 happens, and then he kind of heads a different direction because of the Siege of Mandalore, and all this shit goes south because everybody dies across the whole galaxy. So I mean, it's kind of like bam, like I need to like.
It's hard to fight who you don't know.
He kind of takes a step back and regroups to the point where he's starting to go back and take over the criminal underworld.
Yeah. And rebuild what he knows of the Sith.
I'm also pretty sure we were supposed to get more Leia content out of this.
Well, because she was basically the ruler of the galaxy, but did it in a republic democracy.
Right.
So, like, it's very different.
Mm-hmm.
It's not how it is where they kind of are like, well, the Resistance, like, they were in control for a little bit, and then immediately the First Order just comes back up. Right. Like, the bridge between the New Republic or the Resistance, whatever, being basically in control or trying to like control and delegate the galaxy, like, is completely skipped over, and then we're just at a point where supposedly the Empire's destroyed and all that stuff's gone, but the First Order is rising immediately and has better shit than them already. Like, it's such a weird concept, but whatever.
All right, did you have more here?
So this is basically just things that are different, and the first one, and this is from Screen Rant, but the first one is Lucas didn't have a solo child falling to the dark side. So the Jason Solo was not something that George wrote. That was wrote by just someone else, which is what happened a lot with Star Wars. He kind of gave out and let them write whatever they wanted.
I did see this thing the other day that was saying that if George Lucas would have kept Star Wars and did the sequels, he also would have created Legends and canon. Like, that was going to happen.
But, like, in a way that Legends was accepted as Legends and not just, like, it's Legends, who gives a fuck?
Right, right.
It would have been its own thing.
I did see that where George Lucas was going to do that same thing. So, I mean, we kind of have bashed Disney in the past for making Legends and canon, because we've read a lot of Legends books.
But no, it's not that there's a Legends and a canon. It's that they want to create stories, but there's already stories there.
Right.
George was going no one has this story.
Right.
George has this story.
Right.
And that's why it's never really been done. And the parts that were done, well, Darth Maul gets an apprentice and that all was all included.
The Legends in canon creation was different for different reasons from George Lucas or from Disney. Like, the reasons for them doing it was drastically different. Yeah. So, but yeah, I thought that was interesting because I saw that the other day, that he was actually going to do that, but it was going to be done in a completely different way.
Yeah, so, with respect. Darth Maul is the lead, obviously. Like you just said, it would have focused more on crime and not this, like, there's another empire just here.
Right.
Like, what you said again. This is basically just covering about what you just all said. Leia was basically in control of the galaxy. In like a I don't even know how to put
healthy, like, democracy kind of way.
Yeah, like they're like almost like a president in a weird way, or like a prime minister type of way. We actually get to see Luke rebuild the Jedi, and Luke is not just I was gonna say something. Luke's not a frail old guy who can't do anything. And also, these movies were supposed to be made way before that they were. These were supposed to be made like 4 years after 1, 2, and 3.
I'm pretty sure the reason why he didn't make it was because his girlfriend or wife at the time got pregnant with his kid, which is
who, George?
Yeah, I saw this the other day. He
was like 60.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he had a kid, and that's what made him not do this. Because I saw this thing saying, "I'm retired. I'm about to have a kid." I'm pretty sure that's why we didn't get these sequels, was because he had a kid and didn't want to be an absent father making these movies.
Well, okay, more stuff.
This is, I guess, a fun fact thrown in there.
One part of Lucas's Star Wars was that between 50 and 100 Jedi survived Order 66 and like were coming together and meeting with Luke and being under this, like, they almost built another council. And it has Jedi who were a part of the original council, or not of the original council, but the original Jedi Order. So obviously, like, specifics of that are not like incredibly shown, but we've created these characters now that, like, if it was done around, and that's the thing, because like Kestis is weird because he was done so much later. He might not have been a part of that, which does suck because a lot of people like Kestis. But
I mean, based on what they've done, if this was still similar, I mean, Cal would be a person that would be involved if he was like created later on. Cal would be a person. If Ahsoka survives like what's about to happen, Ahsoka would be a person.
And that's the thing, like Ahsoka could have been a part of that. Why am I blanking on his name? Fuck. I'm like losing my shit. I cannot
Ezra?
think. No, well, I mean that, yeah, Ezra, Kanan, but obviously I haven't with Kanan, so that wouldn't have worked.
Ezra.
Oh my God, they just did the Tales of the fucking thing about him. Fuck. The guy who switched and was a Sith for a little bit in the book we read in Dark Disciple. Why am I fucking blanking on his
Quinlan
name?
Vos?
Quinlan. Jesus Christ. Quinlan built this like underground thing for Jedi. Like Quinlan would have been a part of this. I was like, holy shit.
I was like the little boy that was part of Adventures
No,
Story.
sorry.
I don't know who that is.
And this is something I mentioned earlier because I was reading about it. Lucas planned to extremely explain midichlorians from like a Luke perspective, where Luke is going through and explaining midichlorians to Jedi younglings, and not just it being like, oh, it's a good, like they don't even explain it kind of in the first three. It was kind of like, oh, midichlorians tell you like how much force power you have, and like that's all we kind of know of
I mean, Qui-Gon says like, you know, midichlorians are like the reason why we can live.
But it would have been Luke reading old text and legitimately getting like a class about it in the Jedi Academy.
I mean, obviously, like in the prequels, like when he's talking about it, it's not like they have enough time to really sit there and do that. They're not like, obviously, Anakin's not like accepted by the council in the first movie, so it's like he can't train him. He can't really like teach him that much, and he has an obligation anyways. They have Darth Maul running around, so they don't know, like they have a lot going on. So that's kind of why we don't get an explanation in the prequels, but that is kind of interesting, though, that we would actually learn a great deal more about it and like watch the teaching of it. And even just watching teachings in general is like fascinating to me because we don't really get a lot of that.
I know that there's some scenes that were supposed to be in the second movie where Obi-Wan's like, obviously he looks up Kamino, but there's like a lot more scenes of him doing like how a Jedi would research things in archives. And I'm like, that would have been fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Another part, obviously, we've talked about, and this might be happening anyways, but Darth Talon was supposed to play a big part. And, yep, that would have been another very big female lead of a person that a lot of people knew about, and it would have... I think that would have been a great character to have. That would have been, like, especially because in that time, if Ahsoka is still a part of that, that probably would have been a big opponent for her. Between Ahsoka, Luke, I mean, she would have been this right under Maul, like that. She would have been a part of these fights that we're talking about. So, this I had no clue about. After the Empire, obviously, there's still a ton of stormtroopers. There's actually like a stormtrooper rebellion.
Okay.
And they kind of split where like some of them are trying to keep what they think the Empire is and are doing shit, and other ones are just like, fuck this, like this is not like, this isn't good. And this is where we also get this idea of Finn, where it's like Finn is this rogue, and like the one other character they have in the movies is a rogue old stormtrooper, and like that's supposed to be more of a thing.
It kind of seems like the sequels,
dude, they just Vulture picked it.
Yeah. Just nitpicked little things that was like, okay, like this is close enough.
And I think this is the last thing I have, and I think the most interesting. Force Ghost would have played a bigger role, and so would have Sith Force Ghost. And with it would have been different, obviously, than regular Force Ghosts because they can kind of just appear anywhere. But we see a Sith Force Ghost in a vision from Yoda in the Clone Wars. Like
one of the best arcs in the Clone Wars.
Yeah,
that I guarantee you most people haven't seen.
And as much as you like, that's something George like did. Not only like he wanted to do, like did.
Yeah, he did it.
Now I don't necessarily agree with what he looked like, but comparative to the novels about Bane,
right?
But obviously, this
is
where
they have pictures of Bane on the front of the novel, and it doesn't look like what they show.
And like I think part of it is there is a clear like split of what Bane's armor looked like.
Right.
To me, that's not what that would have looked like.
Right.
But I appreciate that Bane is, in a way, canon.
He is canon. Bane himself is canon, and the Rule of Two created by Bane is canon.
Yeah.
Outside of that, nothing else Bane is canon.
Yeah, and this article kind of wraps up saying, what George wanted to do was very different. I think we can see that. Yeah.
So now we're sitting here with the actual question itself. What is better? Do we think so? We kind of evolved from this question to bring more onto the table than what the question just was. We have George Lucas's, the sequels in general, the idea of the sequels from Disney, or Legends brought into canon. Those are what we have. And I wrote a note from earlier about something you said. You said something about that if we did the Jason and them storyline, it would be 6 movies as a sequel versus 3. I think what really happened was they were just like, yeah, it's too complex to make this. And they just didn't want to have to sit there and make sure everything was right, and then that's why they're just like, all right, now we got canon and legends just to save our asses if we fuck up.
But like, I don't know how you don't research and look into it and like not immediately go, what the fuck? Like, these are they're it's not like it's like we made a character and they're like no one's ever seen it. These are straight pulled out of fucking shit. And like, don't get me wrong, the ideas of what you can do with Star Wars are limited to the Star Wars world. But as fucking close as that story is to characters that people would have cared about.
What I think is just crazy is I feel like they just wanted to make something original. That's what Disney wants to do. That's what they like to do.
But that's what I'm saying. Though.
Right.
It's so disingenuous to call that an original story.
Right. Like, that's like their like number one goal. I also feel like they wanted it to be easier than making something harder, which is funny to me because it's like people would have appreciated it if you made something harder instead of just trying to ramp out movies. Because when the sequels came out and then Solo and Rogue One came out, they were just like jamming movies at us really quickly. And then they started getting backlash, and they kind of took a step back. So it's like, all right, like, we're not doing what people want. And then they continue, whatever.
And then they went, let's go this way. The people will also hate this.
Yeah. But
like, I can't believe you guys hate this.
What's hilarious to me is they like started jam-packing movies, and instead of just making possibly the 6 movies or something that's already been made and established and has a story for, writing's hard. I'm not saying writing's easy, but like, it's easier. You have it laid out in front of you. And what I think's hilarious now, like where we're sitting at today with Star Wars, is they have like 7 more movies that are going to come out. And I'm like, so you were too lazy before to make movies based on content we already have to only make 6 more. And now you're going to be making, how many is that at this point? 10 plus. Let's just say 10 plus. Like, what happened to like 9. What happened to being like, all right, like this is like kind of complex, and now you're just making a whole world that you don't even understand.
It's like they almost went like, oh, we're only gonna make 3 more movies, so we don't need that much storyline. But then we're like, did they actually think that once they released 3 movies that they weren't gonna want to make more movies? Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like every decision was like someone was like, oh, we'll just do this, and no one asked a question.
Yeah.
And if they did, I think they just got fired, which is absurd.
Yeah.
And this is why right now you guys are in the dumpster for all of your movies across all of your platforms. Marvel movies are losing $100 million every time they're in theater. The Star Wars stuff is like doing okay, but it's because you're hiring outside people to do it. And when you did that, you had 1 flop, 1 do okay, and 1 do great. You look at all of the remakes into live action movies, they're all doing terrible. It's like, I don't know. It's like,
how do you have a story that you've already done and you just want to make it live action? Which is, I don't care. If you want to spend your money on it to make live action, cool. But then you change the story.
And what's weird is they were making, like, semi-decent good ones. Like, I don't think a lot of the princess movies are, like, bad remakes.
Right.
It's only recent princess movie and then other live action remakes.
I don't understand how you have a story and then call it the same thing and want to adapt it into live action and then change the story. Like, what are you doing? It's the same story. It's supposed to be the same story. Yeah. If you want an original idea, go make a different movie. Call it something else.
Yeah, dude, and if that was the goal, why did you bring Luke, Leia, and Han back into it?
Right, that's what I
And
don't
then
understand.
not bring in Mara. I don't know how that makes sense. You just pick and choose what you want. Create this bullshit character, and then we're like, all right, so the character we know you're going to care about is the character who's the son of Leia. But we're going to make the main character a completely different character. And then we're like, all right, she's fucking nobody. All right, cool. That's kind of how Jedi are. Their families mean nothing in a grand scheme.
All right.
And then we're like, well, we just can't help ourselves. We have to make it, like, should we do Obi-Wan's kids? When would he have had kids? Does that make any sense? No. Okay, so we move on. It has to be Palpatine. How could we do this? Well, he's been making, like, there's that Force ability where he can, like, jump bodies. Oh, cool. That's a cool idea. How is he jumping bodies? Because, like, only certain people in the galaxy could, like, accept his force power. Shit. We gotta make clones. Well, no clones can have force abilities. Fuck. You know what? Let's do that anyway. We're gonna take some of Starkiller's story. We're gonna throw that in there. Okay. There's this guy, his name's Zahn, maybe? He has this thing about this character. He's like a blue guy. I don't know. There's like some stories where he had, like, Leia has kids and all kinds of stuff. We're just gonna take some of it. And then we're gonna take this other book series where there's like these characters who are so well developed and they're twins and they have friends and cousins and these people who pull them in and out of the dark side, like a guy who's like talking to you and you're like trying to possess you. Like, we'll call him like Snoke. It's close to Smoke, whatever. And we'll have these like weird connections where they can talk to each other across the galaxy. And like Luke has this cool new thing that we came up with, the force projection. And we're just going to throw this all into a story and not use any of those characters.
We're going to bring back all the actors and actresses that played all these characters before.
50 years ago.
And then kill all of them.
And then guess what? We're going to murder everyone that you love. At least they kept one thing true. Disney always kills somebody.
I did see this one thing that...
Sorry, I'm ranting.
Based on George Lucas's Star Wars, Han Solo was also going to die in the hands of his kid as well.
But that's not the part, like, that
I know.
makes sense.
I'm just saying.
You have to
that
kill
was
people.
something that was...
But don't
like,
kill
still a
people
part
by
of it.
bang. He sucked in too much force. And then the other one being like, it was her time.
Okay, so let's say...
You know one thing, and I've been holding this, and I'm just gonna... This episode's off the rails anyways. You know one thing that I actually really liked about the sequels that I think got love but doesn't enough because there's so much bad. You know who's a great character in that? Poe. He's such a good character. Like, we see these fighter pilots who are good fighter pilots. A lot of them are clones, but we have good fighter pilots. We have Han, who's a great pilot. All this stuff. Kind of a clunky pilot, but like he's a good pilot. But then we have Anakin, and he's just such a good pilot that it's like there's the scene we talked about a little bit earlier with Ahsoka. Like, you can make it master, but no one else can. Like, yeah, because he has the Force and stuff. But we have someone like Poe who is just a really good pilot. He wanted to join the rebellion because he didn't believe in the Empire. He joins. There's rumors that he might be related to other people too. Whatever. But you have this character who is legitimately, like, those scenes in those movies, the things he's doing with X-Wings. Like, I didn't even know X-Wings could do that.
Yeah.
And, like, not in a bad way. Like, in a, oh, that makes sense. Like, it's a fucking fantasy fucking jet. Like,
I think the things with him, though, the only things that are bad is just the dialogue written around him.
yeah,
is
and
bad.
I don't care about that.
I don't care
The
either.
whole thing was a shit show.
I mean, he was kind of just goofy.
But
I mean,
the idea of a character being a fighter pilot who is just as good as a Jedi flying. And he flies just as good without the ability with the Force. And obviously, like, everybody's some sort of Force sensitive in a way, but
because everybody
he's
has medical
flying
awareness.
this fucking thing. And, like, that's such a good character to have, where you have someone who's a main character, and this is where this Han comes in, where it's a main character who doesn't have the Force, who is just can do badass shit.
Yeah.
And, like, there could have there's two massive stories between these two. I could probably think of 5 other things that would have been great ideas. And they went, we're going to pluck from everything that you guys know, and we're just going to, like, change it.
All right, so let's wrap all this up with answering this question. If you had to sit here and pick out of everything we've discussed today, which one would you have wanted to happen the most?
I think we might have a difference of opinion. I like the demise of Darth Maul in Rebels. I do think this Sith Lord show should be a bridge between Clone Wars Darth Maul and Rebels Darth Maul, and show you how he has a Sith apprentice that doesn't work out. And obviously, like, the stuff with him versus Luke is not canon. It was just an idea, so you could move away from that and it'd be fine. And then, like, after he loses Talon, or Talon moves on from him, and whatever happens, he then he's looking for Sith holocrons, and that's where he meets Ezra and stuff like that. Like, I think that would have been fine. I do like the idea that we're bringing in this, like, Timothy Zahn, Thrawn, heir to the Empire, and then mixing it with this book series. And yeah, give us these kids. Like that's what the next story of Star Wars would have been about. Luke building a Jedi Order, and his kids and Leia's kids being these first people coming in, and then these Jedis coming and being like, the scenes we could have got with Jedi coming up and talking about Anakin to Luke.
Yeah.
More than what Obi-Wan, Yoda, and then even Anakin and Vader himself, because we also would have got Force Ghost Anakin talking to Luke. There was so much there.
So you're sitting here and saying that you would have liked to have seen Jason and all of
I
them.
would have wanted it to be Luke as the center character a little bit more, and basically like him and Jason and Jaina kind of being the ones, and then obviously like Ben and this Kip character who I think someone that a lot of people should look up. I didn't know much about him at all, if anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would have chose that story over even George's.
So to be as easy as this can be, I agree with you 100%.
Okay.
No, we're on the same page. I would rather have gotten all of this stuff adapted from Legends than even George Lucas, like basically kind of changing some things within the story.
I think the bridge is so especially where they're at right now.
Right.
You have this where Ahsoka knows Luke. Perfect. She could have been someone teaching people, and if she didn't want to do that, fine. You have where you could bring Grogu in, which brings Din in, who knows Boba Fett. Boba Fett, who also helps train Jaina. Like, I don't know how that wasn't like you're even picking and pulling off of the Mandalorian shit too.
Yeah.
Like it's like
you know what's crazy is people have talked about for years about them possibly retconning the sequels. Do you think all these shows could bridge up into where they make it to where they could go back and make?
They ever can.
I don't think they will, but like it's kind of interesting that you just brought that up because they could.
The only way they could do it is they'd have to disrespect the fuck out of everyone in that movie. And I don't think even if that's what they want to do, they'll do it. Because
Right.
the only way that they'd fix that is they would have to come out with a new trilogy that was this stuff. Use the guy who obviously don't use the original fucking actors like they did.
Yeah.
Don't find someone.
They can't now.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
They can't now.
Find people, because like the lookalike in Rogue One wasn't bad. The lookalike in Mandalorian isn't bad for Luke and Leia. Find a better one for Han. The Han one was a not great choice. And honestly, that guy could have worked. Just mess with his face a little bit, like what you did with the Luke one.
Mm-hmm.
And run with this story, as in the only way you could do it though is that Luke would have to be having like nightmares, or even better, you could have Jason have nightmares about it, and him kind of waking up out of these nightmares about things that could have happened, and it be the sequel trilogy.
Yeah.
I think that's a stretch. I think that would be, as much as like some people need to be disrespected who worked on those movies, I don't think the actors should be disrespected like
Right.
that. And even if it was like like maybe Rey, you bring Rey in and she is a legit character, and he's thinking about like, what if she was a Palpatine, and maybe she is on this teetering point.
And/or like Rey could have been somebody that was a Jedi that we just didn't get to see in Order 66, and she was one of the people that survived that made it to this point.
Or they could just restart her story of being nobody,
Right.
And
Or just that.
X, Y, and Z finding her.
Right. But I mean, yeah, so just simple and sweet to answer the question at the end of this hour of discussion, but just simple and sweet answer. Yes, we think it would have absolutely have been a way better trilogy. I mean, dude, you have it all laid out, and just adapting it into a live action version, I think it would have been so much better. I mean, we've talked about it the last few episodes. If you guys want to hear anything, hear any of our opinions, talk about any specific stories, we're open to doing any of that. So yeah, leave your comments below. Leave your comments below what you think about what we just talked about, and let us know what you think. And then, yeah, if you guys want us to cover anything else.
And shout out again, I'm pretty sure his name was E Vibes, or it might be EZ Vibes. I don't really know. I think we talked about it a little bit. Like, he also has a great YouTube channel. Check out the YouTube channel. He does some really good edits and stuff. We were watching him and stuff. It was a really good comment, and I mean, I really enjoyed this episode.
Yeah, it was fun.
I don't know how great it's gonna be for them. I mean, but
I thought it was fun. I want more of them.
I would love to hear other people's theories or ask like, well, what if they did this, and we could talk about that too.
Right.
But yeah, I'm assuming this comment was made because they either read the series or just looked them up and really enjoyed it and kind of wanted to see what we'd say about it. But like, yeah, I mean, I fully am with that fact that would have been a way better story.
Yeah. And then also we might be able to cover the book series too. Something we could do.
Yeah, that might be a thing we do,
Yeah.
especially if that's what you guys want us to do. So, it's been a really good episode.
Yeah.
I like this a lot.
All right, you got anything else? All right, this has been Mind Trick Media. Thanks, guys.